Well, welcome to another edition of What's So Funny, the show that probes the brains, the minds, the psyches, and the brains of the people who make the funny. My New Year's resolution is to do a better job on these intros, to really research and prepare and write an exciting piece about the guest. So, starting next week, I'll probably do that. This week's guest is Glen Wool. I'm pretty sure he's a stand-up comedian. And now a man who will be stripping our guest bare, your host and MC, Mr. Guy McPherson. Guy.
Well done, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yes, our guest, Glen Wool, is a stand-up comedian. As you know, you've seen him, but you're just... I'm saying that for Glen's sake. I didn't want him to
He was
insulted.
crying already.
No, man, I'm not insulted.
Yes, finally, you're here. You were scheduled to be here last February?
Was it? I thought it was September.
Oh, was it?
Was it when I blew my voice out?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Was that September?
That was during the festival.
Yeah, it was at the Vogue Theater. I saw you the night before.
Yeah.
What happened?
I talk too much, man.
Well, I'm listening to your voice now, and it doesn't sound the best.
No, it's not.
Is it ever just silky Mel Torme? Like
It is, actually. It's quite a nice voice if I get it. And it was good. I got it all back in work, and I spent the month of December up at my parents' farm, and I was able to sing and everything. But
this year. Now, you haven't performed much since.
No.
So what happened?
I blew it out a couple days ago.
What were you doing?
It's what I wasn't doing. I didn't do any vocal warm-ups or anything. Although I was waiting to come here tonight. I was doing my humming, but I was smoking at the same time.
Well, maybe that's...
Yeah. I'm just not good at stuff like that.
So you actually do vocal warm-up. This is...
Yeah, man.
So like before a show or every day? How do you do it?
I try to hum. It's nothing heavy. Just humming, making sure your vocal cords are warmed up before you.
What do you hum? What tune do you hum?
One, like that. The vacuum cleaner. Yeah, you can get things to say, but red leather, yellow leather, and all that. But
so a vocal coach or somebody, a professional, gave you these tips.
Yeah, he was an actor. I paid him money to teach me them.
Yeah, and they work.
Clearly.
Clearly. Yeah, they noticed I didn't say his name.
Get your money back.
Yeah, I'd like to tell you all my vocal coach, but his name's too long, and I cannot
It hurts to say it.
Yeah.
Smoking cannot be good for that.
No.
Drinking?
I was drinking last night, a lethal combination, which I think is unfair for the amount that I drank of it last night and do not feel many ill effects. It's tequila shots with red wine as the sidecar. Like, I'm not chasing it with red wine, but you start. It's like it
Seems
should
like
be
a good idea.
Yeah, it should be illegal to sell it in its combination. It's like cleaning products that you can make crystal meth out of. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to buy them all at the same time.
That's right. Or fertilizer for blowing things up.
Yeah.
Exactly. But, as a performer, I noticed when you play, you headlined the Mix a couple months ago?
Yep.
November, maybe?
Yep.
Yeah. You like to use your voice, right? I mean, and you're even holding the mic down because you project so much.
Yeah.
Right? Don't you think if you just held it closer, talked a little quieter?
Yeah, I do. I do sometimes if I've hurt my voice.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't know where it came from or how it evolved to that, but it's effective in getting people's attention.
Oh, yeah, it is. People sit up and listen.
Yeah, and especially if you're playing a club, not everybody's there to see you, so you've got to do things. I had a friend of mine who runs a gig in Alaska. He pointed it out. He used to be Mitch Hedberg's tour manager.
Oh yeah,
and he's done several different like sounds and stuff. He's done sound all over the world. And, he reckons I started performing that way because I was using so many different sound systems and I could never be sure how good they were. So it's kind of like a style that that'll work on anything because you're not relying on the subtleties of the microphone. You're pulling it back for that.
Do you ever work without a microphone? You've showed up somewhere and it doesn't work, like we were saying here. Many times we
just
come
tonight,
to the show.
right here. There's a good little comedy club in Dublin, the International Bar, and they don't have a mic, but it's just a small room. And at first you're like, well, it's not going to work, and they're like, trust us, it's been here for 30 years now. I think somebody would have noticed. But,
I would imagine it wouldn't work for everyone, but as you're saying, it would work for you.
Yeah, well, the mic's quite a
preacher.
crutch. Yeah, it's a lot of the microphones. Like it's just silly. Like technology's moved on. Like we don't need this big thing that you hold with a big stand. You see what some people use now. It's just like the
lavalier.
Yeah,
I hate that.
No, I don't like it. No, I think they tried to put one on me once, and I was just like,
hey, what do you do with your hands?
Yeah,
that's why you need it.
Well, I like a good mic stand drag and a lean on it, and then it was good because I had a very stylish lean, and I was years of just using a mic stand for that, and about a year ago, I really hurt my back, and I was leaning on the mic stand, but I absolutely had to. Yeah.
I interviewed an Irish comic, help me out here, from Galway, very famous.
Tommy Tiernan.
Tommy Tiernan, yes. And for a while, he used the lavalier mic. And I hated it. I just hated it. It was so theatrical, so, I don't know, something about it. It was just a personal thing. But I asked him about it delicately. And thankfully, he said that he's gone away from that. He's gone back to the mic because he just likes the whole ritual of it, the image of it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's part of it, too. Like, and in his mind, it was the rock stars, right? Holding on to the cord and moving around like that. So it's as you say, technology, we've come up with things where you don't need these big clunky machines in front of your face, but there's something about tradition.
Yeah, no, I prefer them. I mean, I don't even like it when they don't have a cord.
Yeah. That's right.
It's just, and you'll always get the sound guy going, good news, we got you the cordless mic. Well, here's some worse news for you, sir. I would like the cordless
I will not
mic.
perform with a cordless
go
mic.
get the backup.
Yeah, it's not like you're doing gymnastics up there.
No, and the sound's
over.
always shittier in a cordless mic.
You know who needs a cordless mic? A cordless mic is Don Rickles. Because he is getting up near 90 now. Just saw him in the fall, I think. And every time he prowls the stage delicately. And there's a guy on the edge of the stage pulling the cords, keeping it tight.
Yeah.
Because he's going to fall over and severely injure himself one of these days.
That's a crooner thing, though. I think Sinatra had one of those, too. I think it's more like...
Which?
The guy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's dangerous now that his feet are going to get wrapped up in that.
I think that's probably what he wants, just to go out, like that.
Yeah.
He got so excited. There was a table full of black guys, and he was just getting ready to show them what was wrong.
But still no Mexicans in Canada.
Yeah, what does he talk about in Canada?
He talks about Mexicans,
Yeah, doesn't know the stereotypes.
He doesn't change.
Yeah.
So you're here, and as you said, you've been working at your family farm in the month of December?
Yeah, I take December off, man. Christmas gigs are
horrible,
soul destroying. I can't do them anymore. The first time I got a sniff of success in this industry, I canceled the Christmas gigs.
Because they're all corporates, and why?
They're just
people
clubs.
Are there to...
Yeah, it's Christmas parties and people that don't really know comedy, and and more power to people who want to do them. I mean, it pays off a lot of people's tax bills and good chunks of their mortgages every year. And if their act is designed to make a show like that work, go out and do it and give people the best night. But I just can't. And you don't want to end a year just thinking, not even thinking, but being sure that you're not funny. So,
So you took the month off.
Yeah,
What
man.
kind of farm are you working on?
I'm not working. I'm just lying around.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
you
no,
just
I
say
don't.
that.
I just said I was up at the farm.
I believe. Can we run that back, Kevin? I think he
Sure.
said he was
Yeah,
working
I'll just
at the farm.
cue it up for you here.
All right, man. You're gonna be disappointed.
Okay.
Oh,
So you're up
but
at the
he's
farm.
in there doctoring my words. So I spent a month, the month of December, up at my parents' farm.
Where is this farm?
100-mile house.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
And
it
that's
was-
where you're from? That's where you were raised?
No, it's where my parents moved when I moved to England 13 years ago.
98.
1998, they moved up there, and after a long search, I found them.
Yeah. They're
Get
trying to
that rim
lose
shot
you.
up
Yeah.
yet, man? Yeah. So it is kind of like a hometown that I'm from, that I'm not really from, because I go back. And now the only
So where
time-
were you from?
Langley, sort of.
Okay.
Like Lower Mainland for high school, and
Yeah.
then before that, Saskatchewan, and then the Yukon for a bit, and Ontario. That's where I was born.
Really?
But
Didn't know. Yeah, I mentioned on the blog today that somehow I missed seeing you in '95 when you started. Where did you play? What rooms were
Yuck
around
Yucks,
then?
a little bit of Punchlines, but that wasn't around for very long. Laugh Lines was a big one for me.
Mhm.
Comedy Cave a few times in Surrey there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a classic.
Oh, yeah, man.
That
That was,
stories from the comedy. Cave?
yeah. Stanhope told me a story once that he knew it, and him and Mitch Hedberg did a co-headline there
Oh, wow.
like many years ago, and I think they were paid in Coke. I'm not sure.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, and I didn't know that either. But can you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, you could sell out GM Place with that show now.
No kidding. It got a chapter in Patton Oswalt's book of essays. It's his worst gig in his life was the Comedy Kid.
Really?
Yeah.
How were they getting all these people? Like,
Well, in his case, he was young and starting out, and he maybe had just won something. So it was his first real taste of the
Yeah.
road, but he hated it.
yeah, I mean, that's where Lennox came up to play the
That's
Comedy
right.
Cave, and that's...
Yeah, and as he tells it, he was immediately demoted, and Richard Lett was put in his place as a headliner, and Richard never let him forget that Americans aren't funny.
You know, Daryl has neglected to ever tell me that story.
He said it right here on this show.
Oh, I'm sure he has, and I will now be reminding him of that the next time I see him. It was wonderful. I got to see Daryl at South by Southwest. It was just great, man.
And now he could see you.
Can he see you again?
Yeah, it's amazing. He got the surgery done right here in Vancouver.
When was that?
Last year sometime. When did you see him?
Yeah, I hope it was. After that, because you're never sure if he's just aloof or if he really can't
That's
see
right.
you.
That's right. Well, he likes to play that angle.
Yeah. You're
Blame it on the
telling a
ice.
lot about him now. All his mystique is falling away.
Yeah, so you do travel around a lot, but you started here in Vancouver. Like I say, I wasn't covering comedy then, but I'd still go out to shows. But, I mean, it's clear that just didn't go to the nights you were there.
Yeah.
But what got you on stage in the first place?
I was breaking up with a girl, and my grandpa died, and I just figured I felt so shitty that because I always knew I wanted to be a comic, and I thought, well, I'll get this out of the way too, just prove to myself I can't do that either. And yeah, it didn't happen that way. I'm still trying to prove it. Trying to get a reason to get another job here. But
Wow.
it's not coming.
So you always knew that you wanted to be a comic, like from what age?
12. My parents took me to see a Bill Cosby concert in
Oh, yeah.
Saskatoon.
And you said, I could do better than that.
Yeah, of course. I did my Don Rickles bit at him. Fell off the stage. Yeah, no, I was just transfixed after that. Just amazed that, a whole theater is just looking at this one dude, and he's
Right.
just up there telling stories. And I always thought, yeah, man, that's what I want to do.
And from there, did you start to buy records and seek them out on TV? Stand-ups?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we already had the Cosby records, and then I you get a hold of what you can, but it wasn't like iTunes back then. You'd find a old Cheech and Chong album at a garage sale or something. It wasn't as attainable. But then I didn't understand them as much. Like I'd buy Richard Pryor albums, and George Carlin, I think, was probably my favorite growing up.
Right, even though you probably didn't understand a lot of that too.
I think I got more Carlin than anything. Like I remember the first time I really, really laughed at a joke on an album was he's like. And now a message from the apple growers of America. Fuck peaches. That's just good humor. I got to meet his daughter recently.
Oh, you met his daughter?
Yeah, she produced, was one of the executive producers on The Green Room with Provenza. I did an episode of that, and it's really cool. It's really cool. She's really cool.
Yeah.
But it's always weird because I just read his sort of the biography of him kind of thing. The thing they released right after he died, and she's in it a bit. It's always weird when you meet somebody that was just sort of
a name.
Yeah, like it's just words in a book. And
yeah,
like these are.
So are you saying she was an executive producer on that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. And there's a book out recently by his lover or wife. Have you seen that one? That was a little disconcerting, I thought. She wrote this book, and it's just basically all the love notes that they wrote to each other.
Oh,
and
right.
it showed a completely different side of Carlin. But I thought it was a little intrusive, even though she was the recipient of them and she could do with them what she wanted. But I just was uncomfortable even looking at them.
Yeah, I thought Courtney loved it that the Kurt Cobain. I thought it was just, it was inappropriate. But then I was never a huge fan of Kurt Cobain, so maybe that's why I didn't want to read that book.
Yeah. So you were working around town and you realized you could do it. Like, first time?
Yeah. Had a great set first time.
Yeah. And then what about the second and third time?
They were a little shakier.
Yeah,
but,
it's a common story, isn't it?
Yeah. You get all full of yourself. And then I got a weekend from the first time I did it. They're like, come back. And
where was that?
Yuck Yucks. Mark Dennison gave me that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it was the first time I did it. I purposely didn't tell any friends or anything, and then I was like, "Oh, I can do this." I told a bunch of people. Yeah, it never works out.
And then they all showed up, and then
the ex-girlfriend that that had caused the heartbreak, that had caused the comedy. She got to see a horrible show. Good, she earned it. Yeah.
But so you had been working on that. Like, what did you have? 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
5 minutes.
Yeah. You've been working on that for a while before. Right. Was it pretty much the style that you do now? I mean, jokes are different, but was the style completely different?
Yeah, it was a bit, it wasn't as pronounced or big, But I mean, that style comes too from just starting to play bigger rooms, and you gotta, you gotta make it a bit bigger. You can look very small on a stage if you're not careful.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I was telling you I saw Dimitri Martin last night at the Center in Vancouver for Performing Arts. Seats around 1,500. And he's not a big performer,
No.
He slinks out there and he's kind of low key, but he makes it work with the writing and everything.
Yeah. No, it can be done.
Yeah. But stylistically for you, I mean, like, some guys go through, maybe they start doing one-liners, say, like Dimitri Martin, and then they evolve into storytellers or more personal stuff. Like, were you always just essentially giving your thoughts, opinionated?
No, I mean, and that's the thing. You may very well have seen me when I was here, because I looked totally different.
Oh, yeah?
I was like a baby with a crew cut. That guy was 19 years old.
Right.
And so it was always tough to try and do anything headier, because people are just like, well, how the hell would you know? When you tell me how to...
Yeah, you're 19.
Yeah. Yeah, and not an old-looking 19. So I think going to England really freed me up to be able to talk about what I wanted to talk about.
So you were, what, 21 or 22?
Yeah.
Is it just because you were older or because you were away from your friends who were judging you?
Yeah, I think it was a little easier, where you just absolutely knew you didn't know anybody. But English crowds are a little more receptive to headier stuff than Canadian crowds were at the time. It can still happen in Vancouver where they try and sneer at you for saying something that you thought. It was funny. I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but just the other night about how Vancouver crowds will, if you say anything that could be taken either way, they will always err on the side of offense, and they'll think that if you said something that could be taken racist, it was obviously racist.
Yeah.
But that's only if you're a white guy. They'll err on the side of racial judgment based on your race.
Well, now, that could be noble or completely misguided, but could it work the other way in England? Say there is a racist up there and they're just giving him let him talk. He's a funny guy, but he really has bad feelings towards somebody.
Sure. Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I didn't move to England to tell racist jokes.
No, that's not what I meant.
But do you mean it's good?
Like we're maybe overly sensitive, and maybe they're not sensitive enough. Is that possible? Or should a comedy audience not even
if
ever
your
be sensitive?
oversensitivity is based on somebody's race, I mean, at some point that has to get into your head and go, wait a second, was it only because the color of that person that I didn't listen to them?
Right.
That should be the first and foremost on people's minds. Like, why do they have a racially based thought process when they're trying to fight racism?
Good point. Some comics won't do racial material about a certain group unless there's people in the audience from that group. Right.
Yeah.
And then what you get here is everybody looking at that group. Are they laughing? It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, but people can screw it up sometimes too. Like you can do a joke about China and people are like, oh, racist. Like, no, China's not a race. It's a country. It's a country that has policies that you can make fun of. Like you can't say you can't make fun of the Chinese government in fear of, just because they're all of, they're not all even all the same race. China's not a race. It's still a group, but because it's perceived as one group of people. But again, the Chinese don't see it that way. There's 15 different sort of castes, if you will, in China, and they know the difference, and they can tell you almost immediately who's who, but just in our eyes.
One thing that I thought was interesting when you headlined here, there was a group, 5, 6, 7 guys, gay guys, right up front. I don't know if you noticed, but when you weren't looking, like they were all making out.
I did notice that.
You did notice.
Yeah, I did.
So you didn't. You never drew attention to it, even once when you were talking to them, right? You just carried on, and then at the end, you got into this bit where you have God making homosexuals and calling them faggots and whatever, and it totally wasn't objectionable because, you have to listen to what you're saying and you are not being homophobic. And they got that immediately and they loved it more than anybody.
That's why I told the bit. I saw 2 guys kissing and I was like,
really?
Oh yeah. I've done that in...
But you weren't trying to get a rise out of them because the way you frame it is like sympathetic.
No, and I've had that before, doing it in... large centers of gay people, like Brighton or San Francisco, knowing that there's a lot of gay people. I am fully aware that gay people enjoy that piece of humor, and
okay.
So it's just reading a crowd. If you see a table of 15 guys and all of them are kissing each other, then
so you were pandering to the crowd then.
Yeah, sure, man.
Oh man, he thought you were edgy, and now he's just.
Here's the thing, though. It comes back to the crowds, the Vancouver crowds, and some people won't listen beyond a few words, and they'll stop and they'll go, "Oh, he's being homophobic because you're talking about gays and you're not gay. Right? So in that sense, in Vancouver anyway, maybe not in Brighton or San Francisco, it is a bit edgy because...
Does that really happen, though? Do people shut it down just as soon as they hear the first couple words?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And it happens more in Vancouver than it does in other places. I mean, it could still happen anywhere, but it was... Yeah.
So what reaction do you get when that happens?
Oh, just, like this misguided staring, and you can just see a whole room of people that just have missed the point of what you're talking about, but now feel superior to you because they think that you are the worst thing in the world. You're like, oh, it's the homophobe. He said all that homophobic stuff. It's like,
yeah,
it's just
or racist or whatever.
Yeah. They're showing a complete lack of tolerance because they thought I was intolerant, and then they didn't listen to anything that you said.
That's right.
Serves you right.
Exactly. And the best thing you can do is realize that those kind of people are generally assholes, and you don't want to entertain them in any way, and you've got their money.
Do you ever, now you go outside and meet the people after a lot of places, do they come up and engage you in conversation or debate or...
Yeah, it can happen. Not often, though. But yeah, like a whore, I saw my little trinkets after the show. So I'm in extra friendly mode, too. I'm smiling, but it was like...
But you ever have to explain yourself to them?
Yeah, man. I was telling you about that show in Kamloops a couple of years back. I ended up getting a big chunk of material about it because... it just got me, and I've been drinking rye too, and I'd been away from rye, and I'd forgotten about its magic powers, and it's just in the bar afterwards, and a dude came up, and he's like, "So, how's it feel to know you just offended a room full of Christians?" It's like rye, it's just like dripping off of my mustache. Honestly, good. And then just went off on a big tirade, which will be available on an album at some point, but we don't have to do it here.
Yeah. So it's funny, you started out here and then moved to England, but it was a fate, right? It was a lottery and an accident?
Car accident with Andrew Carr.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. Andrew was... in the passenger seat.
You were driving?
I was driving. We got rear-ended just outside of a Soyuz. A woman was trying to do a left turn over a double solid highway, and it's caused about a 7-car pileup.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, we were all right. We were about 5 cars in, so it went like smack, 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 and. I mean, it got us hard. Andrew had whiplash. I had whiplash. Wink, wink.
Statute of limitations is long.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing. I took the whiplash money, and instead of buying a new car, I bought a backpack and took it across Europe. So I don't know how much you know about soft tissue injuries, but I don't think that's ever recommended. Yeah, and it was the best move I ever.
Yeah. Now, so you were a few years into doing comedy, thinking it was a career or not?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to do.
And yet you still wanted to take off and just tour around Europe, but not doing comedy, right?
I was aware of the Edinburgh Festival. I was going to go check that out. I talked to Campbell, Craig Campbell, and he said that
Otherwise
was on.
known as Colin Campbell.
Yeah. Which, yeah.
So he was already over there. Another guy who started, or didn't start in Vancouver, but was here.
Yeah.
He had already moved?
No, he was just going over for the summer to do a split bill with Stuart Francis.
Oh, yeah.
And another talented Canadian comedian that does live over there. And so we did 2 years of Edinburgh. We called it the Lumberjacks on Ice. And the first year I just showed up.
2 of you?
No, I just showed up. They said, they could probably throw me on at the start of the show or something. So it was their show the first year, but I showed up and I started emceeing, and it went well. So they were like, just MC the rest of the festival, and that went really well. And then we did it again the next year, and just sort of said, and of course this would be about 13 years ago. We sort of said, okay, well that's enough of doing that show, but let's in the future, when we've all made our names here and become, bankable acts, let's come back and do this at a big venue during Edinburgh, which will be this year. We all have.
Oh, you're going?
We're going for the Stand Comedy Club, which cuts a great deal, and they just acquired an 800-seat room, and we're going with this 3-pronged attack. Like Stuart's huge in England now.
He's so funny.
Oh yeah, and. I had quite a good Edinburgh last year. I mean, like, I don't have any TV exposure there, but I was
some.
Yeah, but not. I'm not regularly on telly, which usually is what sells an Edinburgh show. But I was.
Maybe if you got a haircut.
Yeah, we're talking about it.
Oh. Yeah. Go back to the crew cut.
Yeah, nobody will listen again. But it didn't matter this year at Edinburgh. I was in a 370-seater, was it? Yeah, 370-seater, and I was doing extra shows on the Saturdays. So.
Wow. Well, I mean, I was looking at your reviews online, and over there, you get reviewed all the time. I haven't seen any negative review. Like, everybody loves you.
Yeah, it's been going really well. I mean, it wasn't always that way, and I think probably management's had done a bit of a job of getting those bad ones buried deep in Google.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was some horrible ones at the start, but doing an hour in an hour comedy show is not just writing an hour of material. There's structure and just things that you have to learn about how to do it, and that's what Edinburgh was perfect for, because I was able to keep going back up there and perfecting it.
Huh. So you say there were some terrible ones early on. Was that just that they happened to show up on a bad night, or were you not really that good?
No, I think it was a bad night. Anybody.
Or were they just people that didn't get you?
Well, yeah, sometimes there's knobs too. And I mean, it's like we were talking about earlier. It's very much buzz and what they've read before. And like, I wanted to use some of our reviews from the early Lumberjack shows where, you had me, Craig Campbell, and Stuart Francis all in 1 hour, and we were getting 3 stars across the board because nobody knew who we were. I thought it would be funny to sort of sell the show with those reviews.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to matter now. We can put whatever we want on the poster. It's going to be the names that sell it. So.
How will you decide who goes on first, second, and third?
Well, yeah, we're going to flop it up every night. But I think Campbell's going to MC. But we're also going to have a celebrity guest spot every night where we've hit up all our famous friends in England. So we'll be able to...
Not Canadians, though.
We talked about a few, but...
Wilmot?
Yeah, if Uncle Mikey's there, for sure. Yeah, he'll do it for sure. He's great, and he's been great to me, especially in England. He really has gone out of his way to help me out. I have nothing but love for Uncle Mikey.
When Craig and Phil Nickel were here last year, they told a great story about drinking with Uncle Mikey.
Yeah, I think that's every story about Wilmot.
Where he was just unaffected, and they were one was at the police station, has no recollection of anything. The other one was vomiting.
Wilmot told me a story about smoking weed out at his cabin, and just this, he got a hold of this just perfect sort of mind-bending cosmic weed, and he said he was just sitting there in front of the fire, and he was watching the fire, and he had this big bag of cheesies, and he was just sort of slowly eating the cheesies and then just zoning into the fire. And he goes, I don't know how long I was sitting there for, but I shook awake, and at that point 3 raccoons ran out from under my chair. So high, raccoons are not scared of him. You can see the cheesies.
So I'm sure you've had your experiences with Mike, and well, I mean, you talk about in your act about drunk Glen and stoned Glen and sober Glen.
You know what though? Last year I stopped taking drugs. It was a New Year's resolution, not this New Year's, but the year before, and it really did help my life a lot. And was really strange.
Go figure.
Yeah. And I came back, and now I'm off the leash. If I want to, I've gone the whole year. And I showed up here in Vancouver, and I was at a bar, and one of my old friends that and they're supposed to be sorting their life out, and there's differing reports, and they offered me a bit of a bit of something to take the edge off the booze, and it was really weird. Like I wanted to, but I just didn't, and I never knew that I would have that sort of willpower. But I guess like a year off really helps you. And I was thinking about it because I woke up the next morning, and I just felt like I'd won the Stanley Cup just for how proud I was of myself. And it just goes to show
that's
you.
Great. Yeah. Because I guess in your business, you're going to be around it more than somebody who's working in an office all day, right? And so the temptations are going to be there. And I guess they were last year too, but that was your resolution, and you just said no?
Yeah.
But now you think that you can, because the leash is off, if you want, but you just chose not to in this case, but you might down the road?
Might do, don't know. Would hope I wouldn't, but I wouldn't beat myself up if I did. Yeah. But
is it an aging thing too?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, me and my lovely girlfriend Carol have been realizing lately that we enjoy hangovers a lot more than we do being drunk. Like, we like the next day afterwards with just, cheese pleasers and Diet Coke, and we like watching murder reports on the Learning Network, where it's
I love those too.
Yeah, man, and they just show them all day. I'm like, how many murders are there? Why are they so interesting?
They are. They're fascinating. But with me, it's like, I don't want to have more than a couple drinks now, because I'm just going to feel tired and have a headache the next day. What's the point?
Yeah. And
I'm not a big drinker to begin with, but even still.
Yeah. Well, the stakes get higher too. The more the higher you get in comedy. The shows are bigger. You have to.
So you have to be more professional, I guess.
Well, yeah, and especially at my level, you never know when the big break's going to come, the big opportunity, and you don't want to be in the come down off a 2-day Coke binge. And they're like, get on a plane. We need you in L.A. Oh no, yeah. Can we wait a week? Because I think I might crash the plane with my thoughts. So
we're talking with Glen Wool. The show's What's So Funny on CFRO 102.7 FM, also on podcast. And I'm Guy McPherson. And Glenn, a couple years ago, weren't you moving to LA?
Yeah.
And did you?
Sort of. Yeah, I kept wanting to. I bought a car and stuff when I was down there, but then I was just looking at it. It would have just been a lot of sitting in an apartment waiting for things to start in America. Because when you first go there, they can't work you every week because you're still establishing yourself. And I just looked at it, and I was just getting more and more offers. Tours of Sweden and festivals in New Zealand and stuff. And I just thought, I'm gonna take the work, and I'm gonna err on the side of working, and because I was having a real difficult time just sitting there waiting for something to happen. So, and it was too. I did a set at the Improv, and the casting lady from ABC was in there, and they called me into the office, and I got to meet everybody. They're like, yes, yeah, we saw him last night. He's great. We'll probably be calling you back in a month. And I was like, yeah, I got to go to New Zealand for a festival. And they just looked at me as if I'd told them about a moon mission that I was about to go on.
What?
Yeah, why are you going? And they liked the thought of going to New Zealand, but they couldn't quite grasp why somebody, if you're looking You know, like,
So-
why are you in Los Angeles if you're also going to be going to New Zealand too?
Wow.
But
Now, could you have stayed there and then just worked around Western United States? Or-
yeah, I could still go back and do it. I mean, I'm going back for pilot season. I'll be there for February and half of March, but then I'll go and do the Melbourne Festival and Perth and Sydney and Brisbane, and then after that, I've got June back in the States, and then July and August in the UK again, and then I'll decide what goes on in September. But
So you don't live anywhere?
No, nowhere. So it wouldn't be worth it. I'd never be there. So
Right.
yeah, me and Carol just go everywhere, and what I'd pay in rent, like my flights are generally covered, but Carol's aren't. But so I just pay for Carol's flights, and it works out to what rent would be for a year if we had a place. But then we always get to be together.
Yeah, that's nice. And then you're put up somewhere where...
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then when we're not put up, we get hotels, and again, like, just budget wise, you know, you might spend $200-300 on a hotel in a month, but that's not that much, you know. It just, because that's the thing too. We try not to stay on too many couches because, you know, we're a couple, which is always sort of sad. It's like you guys don't have a home, and now you want to, okay, one's on the floor and one's on the, you know, it's one of those things. Like, I know a lot of comics who just don't have it in their head that they'd ever get a hotel. They're like, oh, well, there'll always be somewhere I can stay and stuff. But I think just from a maturity standpoint, you just have to get those hotels as much as you can, or else people don't look at you the same way as if you're every time you're talking to them, you're like, so what's the spare room situation in your house? Like, if you get kids going to college yet? I mean, they probably got a room in there.
So does the traveling, though, get to you? That can wear you down, too, can it?
Yeah, it does. I mean,
Because you play all over the world.
Yeah, man. It can, but you know, slowing down gets to me too. Sometimes I go to a place for a month, and then
Oh, yeah.
I got to roll, man. I'm the littlest hobo.
The Wanderlust. That's what it's called, isn't it? I think so. Do you do much acting?
Yeah,
So you're
I've
going
been
down.
done. Yeah, I read Stanislavski's first book. It's a bit dry. Oh yeah, man. I read his first book, and then somebody told me David Mamet's Truth or Consequence, Truth or Dare, or whatever it's. No, that's the Madonna book. Yeah, that was the mistake. I read the Madonna book
Instead.
It's
Yeah,
just
not
a Vanilla
good.
Ice
no.
photo that's etched into my brain. David Mamet's got a very good book, and the Stanislavski's book is very thick and dry, and I got some things out of it, but
But have you put it to use?
yes, I did. But then they got me the. Somebody told me to get the David Mamet one, and the first paragraph in the David Mamet one is "Do not read Stanislavski." I wish I'd gotten this one first. Yes, I have. I mean, I read for stuff when I go to LA, and I was in an audition, and there was. I mean, that's sad. I don't know if you've ever been to an audition in LA, but there's just different people in different phases of their life. You know, a couple of, mid-30s women that were attractive, but now have quite a massive coke habit, like they're just always going off to the can, and I'm like, I don't think the role calls for this is for like a sitcom on CBS. I don't think they want a cokehead in it, but false confidence. But so and you're just sitting in there, and then this one dude went in, and he did so poorly that somebody stormed out of the room. Like, he came out, and I guess the writer stormed out of the room and had to be brought back into the room. And in the first couple of times I went to reads, it was a bit like that. Like, it was just two people, me and the casting director, both wondering what I was doing there.
Really? Because you weren't right for the part?
Oh, I just didn't know much about auditions or acting. I mean, like comedy is acting, you know.
Yeah.
It's once you realize it, but the first couple auditions, it's not going to sink in, and you know there was. But yeah, I start getting callbacks from now. You know, now it's not unheard of. You know, I remember the first time I got one. My agent was like almost shocked. Like, yeah, they want to see it again. But yeah, I took a few acting classes when I was there. But the Stanislavski thing, because I was having trouble. Like I'm not a great memorizer of exact words.
Get the gist of it.
Yeah, well, that was the mistake I was making. I was always trying to memorize these lines, and then there was one line that had it was a really strange imagery. It was, why is there a pair of underwear frozen onto this side of beef? It was in context to what the script was about, and I remember trying to memorize it, and you know, like because it's kind of a long thing and it's a weird thing, and then I just realized you just picture a pair of underwear frozen on the side of a beef, like you don't have to memorize that, but that's sort of what he's saying is that you the way you act is that you're
Put yourself
visualizing it in your head, and that whole realization came like as I was walking into the audition.
Oh wow! And then it went well.
It went really well.
Huh.
They called me back for that one, and then decided I was too young or whatever, but that they were really happy, and they went out of their way to call my agent and say that I'd done a good job.
Well,
so,
that's good.
Yeah.
It's gonna hit. I can feel it.
I doubt it. I don't know how much I want it to hit. But
You talk about visualization. Can you visualize it hitting and then you being on this really popular show?
It looks
You wouldn't be doing this show right now, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I'll always come back.
Okay, thanks.
It looks like I'll probably go more of like a History Channel kind of thing. There's been a couple of talks about me hosting shows like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, what kind of? I can't even imagine.
I don't even know how much I should say about it, but I just like more of a where I wouldn't be acting. I would just be presenting, and then
you got to be doing lots of humming before that.
Yeah, yeah. That's the one thing I don't think they know is how patchy my voice is. I'm like, this will be fine, right, for a whole series of some time.
It's a show on pirates.
Yeah. Well, just in the different tones my voice can be at any given time. We'll have to get a series of characters, like hats that I wear when it's too scratchy.
But you talk about Christmas comedy being soul-destroying. I always picture an audition as being really soul-destroying.
Yes, it is.
Is it? Is it just like that?
But when they go good, it's, you're on top of the world. You're driving through Los Angeles. You get the Randy Newman going through your head, and you're pumping your fist, and, you're about 2 seconds away from being mega famous. And, of course, it's never that fast. But, I guess it's about experiences, and that is a great experience. But when it's bad, oh, my God, is it bad? And it's really strange, too, with casting directors. More times than not, they're heavily pregnant. So I don't know what it is about that sort of
it's a very desperation. Fertile profession.
like human desperation makes you fertile. It's a really strange thing. They're always like.
It's funny that stand-ups always strive to, act or be on TV in something that isn't stand-up, because the pays, I guess, way better, and it's more stable. You're not traveling around. You got a job in town, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, what you do best, you and other stand-ups who get work on TV that isn't stand-up, right? What you do best isn't necessarily shown.
Yeah.
So do you think about, is it purely a fame, money thing that drives you to that?
No, I think,
sort of
and there's
validation.
There's been projects that I really wanted to be a part of, you know, like it's not all stuff that you read for that you just don't. You think like, oh my God, that why? Like, I mean, it was really fun watching all the new shows come out this year because I'd read for a lot of them and like seeing. I remember I'd be like, and good shows like we were watching Raising Hope, and like it was the first time I watched it, and this line of dialogue came by, and I was like, why is that so familiar? Oh yeah, no, they thought of it, and then you see what actor was actually hired for the role.
And are they anything like you?
I've got to lose some weight, man. It's all these really fat guys that got the role. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Because I wasn't fat enough.
But you must watch and go, I could do better than that.
Yeah, sometimes. Or, you know, and then the other times you're like, oh, that's why I didn't get it, because they wanted somebody doing something like that.
Well, it's exciting.
I think so, you know, and I was ready for it because, like, you know, like I said, I love touring and I love doing stand up, but it is quite a grind. And the thing about some success of another project would make the stand up gigs that much easier.
Sure,
you know, where I could do bigger venues and not have to do quite so many gigs because I've got nice words written about me, and I've got a good reputation, but that doesn't. You can't put those in a bank account, you know. So
what? I mean, you're more known in the UK, and they have a TV industry and a movie industry. What about acting there? Have you done auditions there?
Yeah, I shot a pilot for a show for Channel 4 many years back.
What kind of format?
It was going to be sitcom, and it was me and Phil Nichol and Tony Law and JJ Whitehead, all these Canadians that live in England, and it was about a Canadian living in England. It was kind of goofy, but it was good. I mean, you can still see it on YouTube if you got 20 minutes of your life to spare. Yeah, it was fun.
It made it to air?
Yeah.
As a pilot?
Yeah, they do a thing called Comedy Labs, and they make like 10 pilots. And
I see. And then see what hits?
Sort of. Like there's no promises, but there have been things that were made into successful TV shows out of Comedy Labs. So when I say I shot a pilot, it wasn't like they were focused directly on me. I was sort of a part of a wider group. But, you know, when it went out, there was some talk that it could be made into something more.
They would never put Canadians on TV.
Well, do you know, they flat out said that to me a few times. Like they couldn't justify having a Canadian accent on the BBC or whatever.
See, this is last week. I was in the car and CBC2 came on, and it was like a drive music show, and the announcer was English, and he had to, you know, as per their rules and regulations, every time he spoke, he had to say, "Oh, and it's something or other in Gander," and you know, all these references. For some reason, it really bugged me that they had an English guy on the CBC, and only because, you know, in the States they always want sort of a neutral American accent. In Japan, I know they always want the central Tokyo accent. In England, I figure that they always want the standard London accent, right? They don't,
posh,
as you say,
they want a posh accent,
right? So, like, you wouldn't have a guy on a national show, a Canadian guy, you know.
Yeah, it's loosening up now. A lot of guys are getting.
It was an irrational hatred on my part because intellectually I would defend it every time, but just something about it bugged me.
No, I know, and I mean, I've said it to English friends, and they were sort of like, "Well, yeah, I can see that." And as I pointed out to them, like, what would you say if somebody said that to somebody from Pakistan? Like, we just can't really have a Pakistani guy on the BBC. You know, people, it hurts their ears, you know. And it's one of those things that it always kind of bugged me because it wasn't something I had control over, you know. I can't. And I'd fully immigrated there. I mean, I was married. I owned a house. I was you know, and I would tell people, I'm like, well, I'm English now, you know,
Yeah.
I've been here for 10 years, and you know, and especially comedy, which over there is very left wing and, you know, very, you know, supposedly forward minded, you know, but once you start, I mean, it got on English comics when we first, you know, the first wave of Canadians came over, you know, so you'd see these very left-wing people, but when it really came down to it, they're like, I take all bloody jobs, what the heck? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, they come over here, because, you know, it's easy to have those sort of beliefs and opinions when you're talking about somebody, you know, talking about immigrants taking other jobs. You're like, yeah, you know, it's an ugly thing to think that you would say, why don't you go back to where you're from? But once it's your job, it's like, yeah, but no.
You don't sound English, though.
No.
Everyone I know, every Canadian I know who goes to England, you know, just for a vacation for a couple of weeks, comes back sounding, you know, oh, and I was on the lorry.
Yeah,
And,
well, I was
pushing my pram.
I was at my parents' house for a month, so I've kind of lost.
So you've lost that. You do. have
Oh
that.
yeah, no, I get real Canadian after a while. Eh?
Stuart Francis I use as an example because I see British comics coming over here using the British lingo, and we all get it. We know what they mean, even though we don't use those words. They don't change it for us. American comics come to Canada, and all the references are American. Well, we get it. We understand. It's like, is that something you have to be aware of? Like certain words?
The only time, like, and this is audiences all over the world, the only time they'll ever drag you up on that is if they don't already like you.
I see.
And then it'll, like, you know, it's one of those things, like, if you do it early enough, you don't give them a reason not to like you, because people, you know, like, it's all, it's like, I've responded to a few hecklers about that. They'll say, we call it, you know, that over here. I'm like, but you knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So I just stopped the show. But
Yeah.
my big
Exactly.
closing bit in England for the first 3 or 4 years I was over there, I used to do a bit about, I would just constantly call football soccer. But
On purpose.
yeah, but acting like, you know, we got things like I love soccer. And they're just like, if you got it at the right time, it would start out as one person, football. Like, yeah, no, it's soccer.
Yeah, I like football too.
And they'd all, like, you could just get them like, football. And then I would always, you know, I go, you know what I like most about soccer? It's calling it soccer to an English crowd. And then they would twig, and I would do some soccer material. But sometimes they wouldn't. Like, it would always be funny. Like, you'd get a big laugh, and then there's another point where you say it again, and there'd always be some person that hadn't caught the first one. And then, football amongst people, like, no, he knows what he was doing there.
Well, it's a good thing you're likable.
Yeah, yeah.
And our time's running out rapidly, if it hasn't already. I know that you're leaving town. You're doing the Snowed In tour this week. Not yet, Kevin. Take that music off. I got longer than 1 minute to talk here.
You're way past, buddy.
I know, it's all right. It's Glen Wool.
Yeah, man. It's
Because he's going away soon.
Yeah, man.
He's got the Snowed In tour, Tuesday in Nanaimo, Wednesday Port Alberni, Thursday Campbell River, all the big spots.
That's right.
Friday Victoria at the McPherson Playhouse, big theater.
Is that your family?
No, it's spelled differently. And then Saturday, 2 shows in Vancouver, the Granville Island stage. Yeah. And then just you're taking off what I assume the next morning, because you have this huge UK tour.
Yeah. Well,
starting on the 17th.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, many dates.
Yeah, it's only a couple of weeks. It was the only place we could
Isn't
fit
that
it in.
huge? There's a lot of dates.
Yeah, man.
Starting in Leeds.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes well. It's funny. I'm doing so much press because I'm doing press for this tour, and then the English press is starting to come in, and you know, I'm a bit of a sociopath, but I've been talking about myself quite a lot.
Right.
It's getting a little like. I don't think you should talk about yourself like as much as I have been.
What's the worst questions that you hate? The questions that reporters ask you.
Where do you get your material from?
Oh, where do you get it from?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
You forgot that one, guy.
Richard Lett writes it for me. He stole it from Daryl Lennox on that Faithful.
And George Carlin.
And George Carlin.
Yeah, you get some ridiculous questions, I imagine. But
Yeah,
you're
well,
good-natured about it.
I try to be. It depends, because especially with England, it can be very early in the morning when I'm talking to them. And, I'm not famous in England, so a lot of the time I will get a new sort of rookie interviewer who's not even aware of, just describe yourself in 10 words.
Really?
Yeah.
You do the work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the times, they'll ask the same question in a different way, just reword, like how to get your material, and you try and tell it. So where does your material come from? Yeah,
Variations.
there's worse things to have. There's not being interviewed at all, and nobody
That's
caring.
the thing you got to remember.
Yeah.
So when you get your big TV show, you'll still talk to the press.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right. Now, Kevin,
What?
you can play the music.
Oh, now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, hang on. Oh, no, I
lost
don't.
it.
Oh, I lost it. I don't.
That's all right.
Can you hum it for us?
Oh, yeah.
I'll do my exercise.
Here we go. Glenn, thank you so much. Any plans for coming back to Vancouver?
Yeah.
Next December, maybe.
Probably November. We'll see. I don't know where I'm going to be in September, so.
Right.
But yes, I'll definitely come back.
Come back here, please.
I will.
Yeah, and talk more about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have created an alter ego by that point.
All right. Thanks a lot. And we'll be back here next Sunday night at 11.
Wonderful.
Is that it?
I guess so.
Okay.
All right.